morning, everybody. Thank you for joining. I'm really happy to be with you today. This is exciting. I can never get enough of talking about analytics, and appreciate everybody's time. I'm calling from Utah, and my heater just kicked in, so I guess fall has officially begun in Utah, and it's been a lot of fun over the last week to watch the temperature start to change a little bit. We have a tremendous amount of content today, and I try to do these webinars as jam-packed of useful content as possible, and so I'm going to jump right in. You know, I wanted to start off with just who is this for? We had over 300 people register for this, and we really wanted to gear an analytics conversation to the Office of Accountancy, CFOs, controllers, accountants. And really, we love talking to this group. One, because Eide Bailly is this, and we understand a lot of the challenges and also the opportunities that this group has. And number two is we feel like analytics, and I'll get into this a little bit more, but you get this idea of turning data from a liability into an asset. And that turning data from a liability to an asset, that's what gets me out of bed in the morning. I never get sick of it. I love talking with companies where you come in and the very first conversation is how expensive and hard to use their data, the data is, and then watching this analytics process take over and turn it into an asset that people can't live without, that business runs on. And that's a lot of what we're going to be talking about today. So, you know, one of the fun things about doing a webinar is you get to do the webinar that you yourself would like to attend. And I love webinars that get in the weeds. This is something that I've learned, especially talking with the Office of Accountancy, is you've got a lot of smart people that really want more of a show, don't tell mentality. And so in that vein, I brought two others with me today, Jordan Atterberry and Josh Haynes, who will be doing some demos. The way we've divided this up is I'll take about somewhere around 20 minutes, and they'll take about 30 minutes of very in the weeds demos. And I think that's where a lot of, dots get connected, is when you start seeing what analytics can do for different use cases in your business. And then, you know, I'm not used to doing these for CPE, so I always have like this baited, if you stay to the end, we'll give you a gift. And this is still your free gift. We've got a strategy blueprint, and it's something that a partner has made that we think is fantastic for organizations to use. It's an Excel file, very practical questions and filling out of how you're going to tackle your company's data strategy. And so stay to the end. I'll provide that link at the end of this meeting. So to introduce myself, I'm Nathan McMurtry. The important part of me is knowing I graduated as an accountant. My history is I was in my first job out of school, and as a lot on this call would probably relate to, I was kind of doing the grind of the monthly financials, the closing of the books, and all of the different things that need to happen at that month end. And the company I was working for hired this individual, this manager, to come in and do this thing called business intelligence. And it was like the coolest sounding job I'd ever heard of. Business intelligence, that's awesome. And I sat there and talked with this individual for 10 minutes, and he came in and we sat down, and I said, so what are you doing? And he started to describe how he would use data, and how data was becoming a great way to analyze a business. And after 10 minutes, I was sold. It was one of those things where I thought, oh my gosh, I thought this was what accounting was. I was going to use data to help a business analyze itself better. And I went and just begged my boss at that time to be part of this new business intelligence team. And I've just loved it. My whole career has been here since that day, and super grateful to have found something that I very much love to do. So Eide Bailly, I wanted to bring this up. I know a lot of people, because of this, would already be familiar with Eide Bailly. We're a top 20 CPA firm. For those of you who read Accounting Today, which I'm sure a lot of you do, we are now officially number 15 on that list. So that's pretty exciting for us. What's important to know is Eide Bailly's in growth mode. We have expanded geographically. We have expanded in our services, and it's all to service our clients better. And I've been part of this firm for the last year and a half, and it's just amazing to see the focus on the customer that Eide Bailly has. And so I've got the section here highlighted, technology consulting. That's where our data analytics practice resides. When you think of Eide Bailly's technology consulting practice, there's a host of services. Our largest services revolve around NetSuite with ERP. We've got 5 out of the last 6 years. We are NetSuite Partner of the Year. We have very, very great best practices there. And then also Salesforce. We have a fantastic Salesforce group. They're a gold partner. And then we've got a lot of Microsoft services with cloud and security. And then my group, I'm the principal with over the data analytics. So the next piece is I just wanted to show some of our analytics clients. We've been doing this. My firm was called Zerva. We were merged into Eide Bailly about a year or so ago, and just been really, really tremendous to be bringing more analytics capabilities to the Eide Bailly clientele. A lot of mid-market companies is what we really target to bring these solutions to. So our why, I think for those of you who've read Simon Sinek's Starting with Why, we really believe that every company can be a data company. And this kind of goes with a belief system that, you know, if you just look around right now, you've got Uber is the world's largest taxi company, and they own no vehicles. You've got Facebook, who's the world's most popular media owner. They have no content. They create no content. Alibaba is the most valued retailer in the world, and they have no inventory. Airbnb is the world's largest accommodation provider, and they have no real estate. And what's the common theme across all of these companies today? It's data. Every one of these companies has figured out how to use data to connect buyer and seller. They figured out how to monetize data. They figured out how to connect publisher and consumer. And that's a belief that we feel like is going to permeate and continue to permeate every industry, no matter what industry you're in. And I'm sure a lot of people are nodding their heads on thinking about their own organization and how important data has become. But we believe this trend is only going to get stronger and stronger through time. The problem with data. So even though we've got some great things happening, there are major challenges with data. And I think this Harvard Business Review did a really good job of kind of walking you through the challenges. So the first part of the article is 80% of an analyst's time is spent discovering and preparing data. So the data prep is taking 80% of their time, and then the data that they've prepared, less than 50% of the organization structured data is actually being used for decision making. So it took us a lot of time to prepare the data. Less than 50% of the data is being used to make decisions. And then we've got 70% of employees having access to data they shouldn't. And it's a major wake-up call that's happening right now, which is always tied to value. How do we get the most value out of the investment we're making in our data? And that's a problem. We internally have been trying to capture all of the challenges that people have with data, and these are generally the buckets that we're seeing. And I'm going to take a little bit of time to describe some of these. So inaccurate and consistent data, that doesn't need a lot of context. This islands of data in disparate systems is a major problem. Read an article a couple of weeks ago that talked about the average number of systems that companies are using now has exceeded 10. If you can just think of that challenge. Marketing is using its own systems, operations is using its own systems, finance has its own systems, sales is using their own systems, and the proliferation of all of those silos is making major data problems. Where is my customer data? It's in 10 different systems, and if I don't get the data out of all those systems, I don't have a complete picture of my customer. Manual data process, it is amazing to see how many manual data processes exist in an organization, and it's both a problem and an opportunity to automate. Rear view mirror versus forward looking. We've especially when we're talking to accountants, the reliance on financial statements we'll always say is more rear view mirror looking, meaning by the time you get that data, the period has passed just by nature of what a financial statement is. The challenge with data is it's too late. A lot of times, I won't say all the times, but it often is too late. Today, you need data delivered as it's the analogy of looking out in front of the car instead of using the rear view mirror to drive your car. Lack of timely access is a major problem, kind of goes into that rear view mirror looking, but it also relates to if it takes 2 months for us to do a certain analysis because the data is so hard, that piece of analysis is less timely, and so it's therefore less valuable. And so there's a speed element to analytics we've got to tackle. The time to value, so the last two are actually the antithesis of each other. There's a time to value where we spend way too much time on the back end development and no value is realized by what we spend all that time with the data modeling. And then the flip side of that is we spend so much time on the front end development and we completely ignore the back end, and we find ourselves in an unscalable environment because we have, let's say, 50 reports and the business changes a revenue recognition problem or a revenue recognition definition or some kind of business rule. And now we have to remember the logic that exists in all of these other places. And so it's a long way of saying that there's a lot of challenges. So this is what this call looks like. We've got manual data processes. Awesome. We've got a really good demo for you guys today then. So yeah, if manual data processes is a major challenge, there's some great ways to automate data, especially if you can think in your organization, I have a really gnarly spreadsheet that has VLOOKUP to VLOOKUP, or I have pivot table hooked to pivot table, and I'm testing the 7 layers of a nested if statement in Excel. There's some really, really great tools out there. So that's the problem with data. What's the solution? I want to first say that the solution is a maturity model. One of the things, so think of 5 levels of maturity of analytics. One of the most interesting things is when a company is usually at level 1, we very often get asked this question of, so when's it going to be done? And it's a little bit of a funny question because it's never done. It's like business strategy. There's always something else to analyze and get smarter about in your organization. But when you haven't been there and you don't realize the value, you kind of see this as an endpoint. Some of the things I wanted to highlight on this is thinking of your business as a maturity model. And we've got 5 levels of organization. And the idea here is that level 1, you're in spreadsheets. And there's nothing wrong with spreadsheets, but you're using spreadsheets as a database. And that's what's wrong with the spreadsheet, is there's better tools to do the heavy lifting of data. As you go up the maturity model, level 2 is where you start to automate things, but they're very pipeline. Marketing's doing its own thing, finance is doing its own thing, sales is doing its own thing, and none of them talk to each other. One of the most important considerations in this that I think if you take nothing else from this call today, that level 3 is where the business executives become the champions of the analytics. Meaning, if you see your analytics solution as something the IT guys do and you don't have sponsorship specifically in the Office of Accountancy over the results and over how that data is being used, that's a major opportunity for your accounting group. Don't let this be seen as something the IT team does, because it's not. It shouldn't be. It should be the entire executive team should have equal say, and ownership is the right word in the solution. Once you get above that level 3, that's where you start getting into, so level 3 and 4, that's where you start hearing companies do this idea of, what are our KPIs and what's driving the business, this idea of OKRs, objectives and key results. They're very starting to get this data-driven mind and starting to get real value. So, it looks like a lot of people here are stuck on level 2, or they consider themselves in level 2. So let me just give you a little bit of advice on level 2. To go from level 2 to level 3, that's where usually you feel like maybe the cost is outpacing the value. And there's almost a little bit of stepping back of saying, how can we now, we've got all these stovepipes of data and everybody's doing their own thing. How can we bring this in together to create this one version of the truth? And that's what should happen at level 3 is business sponsorship should start taking in precedence, and then the fewer silos, more working together between the different departments, better sponsorship. And hopefully you get to level 5, and I would put some of those companies I was talking about earlier. So we've just got really amazing things happening in the world today with the level 5. Here's an analogy I like to look, and I'm getting a little close to the end of my time. Like I said, I want to get you into the weeds. I know I don't want to be killing you with a spreadsheet here, but I do think this sets some context that's good. We like to describe analytics like a restaurant. And in the same way that you wouldn't go sit at a restaurant and the waiter wouldn't come out and just drop a bag of beans on your table and say, enjoy your meal. Data is the exact same way. We've got way too many bags of beans being dropped on, our business analyst table and saying, go make great things happen. you've got to divide it up. Just the same way that a restaurant would say, we have a pantry with raw food, we have a kitchen where the raw food is being combined and recipes are being applied, and then we have a dining room where the data is, or sorry, the food is being served up to those in the best way to consume possible. And in the same way, we use a data lake, just some new words maybe for someone on the call. A data lake is where we really take a lot of data from all of those systems and create centralization around the data. We want to create one place where all of our data is, and there's really great things in the cloud for this that help that centralization of data. It's also a great source record of data. So when the auditor comes in and says, this report shows me that you did this on your AR, or you did this in your revenue recognition, show me the details. Data Lake has the details. It's untouched data that's just a replica of your systems. The data warehouse is really where the expertise and the hard work comes in. Data warehouse is where we're joining all of that data together. We're applying business logic. We're cleaning the data. We're making sure that the data is ready to be consumed by ultimately the biz side of the business, which is that dining room piece. And the visualization, now we're turning and we're saying, how can we make this data as consumable as possible to the people who need to use it? We're trying to think of the business. How's the business going to use this? And so that's a good analogy that you can use in your own business. You know, do you have these separations of duties with your data? And think of it in the maturity model. You're not trying to go to level 5 if you're a level 1. Try to go to level 2, and if you're a level 2, try to go to level 3. Take this in small chunks, but in the same sense, realize that you need to separate these three duties. I'm gonna just make one comment on this one, which is this is the same idea as that restaurant. You've got some data sources, your accounting system. So I've got Sage 100, and I deliberately picked a lot that most people on this call wouldn't know because it doesn't really matter. But this idea of bringing it all together, Snowflake is one of our favorite places to do the data laking and data warehousing. And then some Viz is sitting on top of that. And we're kind of passionate about Tableau and Power BI. So this is a comment that I think is probably one of the biggest reasons for failure in BI projects. You've got to go top down. And what top down looks like is it looks like the senior management saying, these are the metrics that are important, turning to the people who are going to build the visualizations and saying, go get the data for this. They're turning to maybe a back-end team saying, where's the data for this? Bottom up it's not really what this says here, which is the workforce. It's much more where somebody goes and tries to get all of the data out of the systems, and then they try to build a report that they think is useful for management. And then once they build that report for management, then management says, yeah, that looks good. 9 out of 10 of our projects always go top down. And it's just by virtue of getting to value as quickly and as cost effectively as possible, go top down in your own projects. There are a few cases where bottom up makes more sense, but generally speaking, go top down. I like to show this slide. This is just some of our favorite analytics tools. You know, there's a lot of, you'll never see a more fragmented market than the analytics space today. There are a lot of options and a lot of things. These are some of them that we have seen that are popular, that we think are great tools to introduce you to. So let me just, I've got to get going faster here. So I'll just make a couple of comments on the trends in data, specifically towards the Office of Accountancy. This is Gartner's top 10 trends CFOs must understand to prepare for the future of finance. All I wanted to do is I could pull any top 10 trends for CFOs right now, and data right now is 6 out of the 10. And you'll see that over and over and over again. The CFO has got to be seen as the champion of data strategy for the organization. And no longer is the CFO just seen as, hey, create the financial statements. Now the CFO is seen as a strategic member of the board, of the management team, and you've got to come with a very strong data vision. And so that's the point on this one. Really interesting CPA licensure changes for those in the know. They're looking at adding a business reporting and analysis track. And there's also an information systems and controls, which aligns with analytics as well. So at least 2/3 of that proposed changes to the CPA license will involve analytics. And so seeing this as part of your personal growth as well. Eide Bailey made this awesome investment this last year. We took 8 individuals and from audit and tax, and we taught them to do analytics. And this has been massively successful for upskilling our people. And this is going to be my question for you right now, which is, what are your company doing right now to upskill your people? I will say this, what was really interesting about this group is they were self-selecting. Eide Bailey said, who is interested? So it wasn't something that we went and found people, they found us. And we have looked at analytics as being married to the future of these individuals. It's not something that's like an alternate career path like it was for me when I graduated. I was in accounting, and then I said, oh, I want to go do data analytics. I don't think that division exists anymore like it used to. All right, so let me flip now to the weeds part of this this demonstration, and I've invited one of those exchange individuals to come in and do our Alteryx demonstration. This is the hard thing about a webinar, is I don't want to be seen as showing you that these tools are the only tools or they're the best tools for you. What we're trying to show you is what, and I'll share those results, is what tools can do. And finding the right tool for your company is important, but I just want you to see that, I want you to know that I think this is important for you to see how we can automate things, and at the same sense know that there's really great tools out there.
So my name is Jordan Atterberry. I am a CPA. I've been with Eide Bailey for a little over 6 years now, and I'm one of the exchangers who had the opportunity to spend a few months with the data analytics with our consulting group. In that time, I learned pretty in depth this Alteryx tool that Nate talked about. I got the basic and the advanced certification in it just since May 1st. So it's something that for someone who's interested in it, there are awesome resources out there, and it is it's something that you can learn if you're interested in it. So in this example, first I want to show you an overview of what Alteryx does, because it can kind of be confusing. There's a lot of tiles and a lot of wires going everywhere. So to kind of compare it to Excel, we have some inputs that you might think of as sheets. These are my inputs on the left, and they come directly out of an ERP system. And then all of these other little tiles here are, you can just imagine as either like a pivot table, or a way to add some formulas, or to filter, or to do some sorting. This would be similar to a VLOOKUP. So we've got some familiar functionality. And what I did was I built a series of tests, actually 7 tests that you might want to run perhaps in an internal audit department, or if you don't have one, someone in the accounting department who is just, executing controls over your processes. In this example, we have a list of credit memo transactions, and I want to compare it to lists of those who are authorized to create credit memos, and also those who are authorized to approve credit memos. So the first thing we did was we reviewed those creators. This is just going to summarize. So if we look into our preview of our data, this is just a total list of our credit memos. So we have maybe the invoice that it's related to, who created the credit memo, when they did it. This changed by column is actually the approval. So who approved that credit memo, when they approved it, some information about their order. This is a customer number, a dollar amount, and then some additional information, such as change time. And so when I summarize it, I just said I want to look at the sum, then by person, the count, how many they did, and then the average. And the next thing I did was sort it. So I can see that this individual approved about $22 million of credit memos. That may be normal for them in their position, but as you visually scan this list, you may see some that are unusual. Then you can investigate those further. You can filter the list. So pretty basic, just reviewing the creators. But next I want to actually look at the unusual approval hours. So the great thing is we have the time of day over here in our detail. And so the first thing I did was I summarized it, and I said, first I did a formula that gave me the hour of the day. And then I summarized those hours to say we had actually 2 transactions that were approved in the 4 a.m. hour, and then 4 of them that were approved in the 5 a.m. So this is where we're visually scanning, we're looking for unusual types of transactions, and then I'm going back to that detail and filtering it. So this is where I said, I entered a formula to filter it to say if the hour is 4 o'clock or 9 p.m., those would be unusual. I could take those to, now I go back to my detail, and this is just those unusual transactions. You can see all of the 9 o'clock hours and then the 4 a.m. And we can go back to either the transaction itself, if we want to go back into the ERP and look into the details of those transactions. We can go back and have conversations with the approvers to see, you know, what were they actually there during the day? Was it set on some sort of timer? It's a great way to look through this almost 6,000 records and really make sense of it and try to figure out what do we need to spend our time actually looking at. So the next, we have our first opportunity to compare 2 of the sheets. So in these previous examples, we're just looking at the detail of credit memos. As you can see, these wires that kind of trace into our tools. So in this is our first example of comparing the authorized creators with authorized approvers, and we're just asking, can anyone do both? So we enter the criteria that where the created by name matches the changed by name in these lists, and the great news is there's no one that can do both, so that's really good. Our other output anchors are, this is just the list of creators, and on the right, the list of approvers. And so some information about these lists. So these are details that come directly out of a system. And so now, since we have some information such as the date granted, the date the access was removed, and a dollar limit in this example for the authorized approvers, then we can jump into our next test. Is we want to know, did anyone create a credit memo who was not authorized to do so? So we enter our credentials. It says created by, this is our credit memo list, and comparing it to the approver list. And on our left output, we have all of the entries that were created by someone who was not authorized. And we can summarize it, and we actually had 5 different people. So we might investigate that. Then we wanted to ask, did anyone create a credit memo before they were authorized? So in other words, they appear in the list of authorized creators, but were they able to create it before that authorization was granted? So all we do is we come to our join output, because they are on the list of creators, and we asked, were there any that were created on before access was granted, which is what this less than formula is saying. And in fact, we had 40, and it looks like all from 2 different users. So then we can follow up in the same way that we recommended before. We asked the same question for created after authorization. After authorization was rescinded, and we had 2. We use the same methodology, the same thought process to review our approvers, and with one additional piece of information. So we have unauthorized approvals, approved before authorization was granted. We didn't have any, that's good. Approvals after authorization was rescinded, don't have any, that's great. But we have one more piece of information in our source detail, and that is the dollar limit that they're allowed to approve. So I entered this formula. It says, is the net value of their approval greater than the dollar limit that they're allowed to? And in fact, we had 1. So this individual, C. Suarez, approved a credit memo for $6,400, but the dollar amount that they're allowed is only $5,000. So we were able to really dig deep into their credit memo transactions and sort through several tests here in a matter of seconds. once this is built. And
Yeah,
then
maybe hit on that comment, Jordan, once this is built. So you took 3 months to learn Alteryx. So now the creating of this takes how much time? I think people are generally interested in that.
yeah, so once I had these inputs, I spent about an hour putting all of these tests together. As an auditor, I kind of already have the auditor mindset of what I might want to know out of this information, such as someone who wasn't authorized or a dollar limit was exceeded, that kind of thing. So it took me about an hour to put it together since I'm pretty familiar with the tools. And the great thing is you can apply this series of tests to anywhere else in your system that requires creation and approval. So this is an example for credit memos, but by just changing these inputs, you can run these exact same tests on journal entry approvals, purchase orders, and anything of that nature. So checks written, some of them may require just a little bit of tweaking in the formulas and the names of the fields. But the great thing is, this is one example of a series of tests that you can run, but this goes into a test library that says, okay, now my people have something to draw on to say, I need to run that creation and approval test. You start building these other tests throughout your system, and now you have something that is repeatable, it's scalable, and if you need to make a change, it's as simple as changing a couple of lines in a formula. Whereas if you were trying to do this in Excel and you create a pivot table and then you paste the value, you break that pivot table, and then you do another VLOOKUP, and you realize you've made a mistake, then you have to go back and redo all of those steps. You've lost any time advantage that you had originally created. So I would say, yeah, the key takeaways there are, Nate mentioned bringing together disparate systems. A lot of companies now have 10 or more systems. Alteryx is really versatile in the types of inputs that you can bring in. And so these inputs, they can be CSVs, or they can be tab delimited, or they can be Excel sheets, or they can be straight from a database to connect directly into different systems and to compare.
You just to hit on that, you could connect it directly to your QuickBooks. You could connect
Absolutely.
GP.
Yeah, there's this little in database tab that allows you to connect to, Amazon Web Services and Microsoft databases, and yeah, so.
I think another important part, Jordan, is how much coding are you doing?
Yeah. So I don't know really any coding. In the exchange, we kind of got a little bit of overviews of some coding, but really I don't know any. So I would say this is highly accessible to anyone who, has like an analytical mind, someone who is willing and eager to learn a new tool. But I mean, that's why I kind of put it in the context of Excel, because this transformation piece that we're looking at, because this is kind of like the in the kitchen that Nate talked about. We're comparing sheets, we're doing some outputs here, but yeah, it's definitely accessible to people who are familiar with Excel and who don't know any coding and then aren't interested in learning any coding. So that's all I have for that credit memo workflow, but I do want to give you just an overview of a real life example of something that we're working on for a client. I won't show you any of the actual data there, so I'll just kind of hide those. And so you can see this workflow so in this example, this client, they maintain their inventory and their costing for their sales orders in Excel. And so they have 3 different Excel workbooks. Each of them has 3 to 6 tabs, all with sum ifs, VLOOKUPs, pivot tables, you name it, they've got it in here. And it takes them a couple of months actually to run through all of the different combinations of different things that they're building, and then entering all of those parameters into this worksheet and having an output. and they actually didn't believe that we could do it. They were kind of surprised. So this is an example of we took just one of their inputs for costs, and we were just applying formulas and filters, and then using that to then come up with their costs, their profit margin for different categories of items. It's still a work in process, so if I run this, you've got a little exclamation point. So, but we're able to take something that had once taken them a couple of months. This is versatile enough that anytime their input changes for their sales order information, we change those inputs and we click run, and instead of taking 2 months, it's finished. So it takes just as quickly as your computer can process it.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome. I mean, especially when you're talking about margin analysis, it's one of the most difficult things to do when you have, thousands of SKUs and the data is always moving, and, work in process, the whole deal. Definitely a really cool use case. All right, Jordan, thank you.
Thank you.
So let's pitch. I'll hit Debbie. You had a great question, which is, moving to Bill.com. I do not know. Alteryx specifically has a few thousand connectors to systems. I don't know if it has Bill.com specifically. What it does have is a custom API connector. So a lot of these online tools, you'll have to hit their API. And so you can use Alteryx to hit that API custom if it doesn't just have it out of the box. And so that's the answer there. And then Christy, we love Power BI. We have an awesome Tableau demo for you today. So just for everybody on the call, there's really two kings of viz today when you're looking at different visualizations. There's Power BI and there's Tableau. Power BI is owned by Microsoft. Tableau is now owned by Salesforce. To be honest with you, we think they're both fantastic tools. And so if you're caught in that when do I go with one or the other, we love that conversation. So happy to have that conversation.
Nate, there's a couple more questions in the Q&A box from William.
Oh,
I wanted to check those out.
I'm in the process of answering the first one.
Okay, great. Yeah, I could. Anyways, that's a great question, William. Sage 100, I can't remember. So we have a Sage group, and so they're going to hate me for this answer because there's 5 or 6 different Sage products, and I can't remember exactly which one Alteryx has a direct connect for. If I'm remembering correctly, 100 is the contractor Sage, and I think there's a special ODBC connector that you just have to install before you can direct connect to it. But I would have to do a little bit of research on that. I will say Alteryx is meant to direct connect to the systems or an Excel spreadsheet, as Jordan showed. The closer you can get to removing the Excel spreadsheets and connecting direct to the system, the less fault tolerant you'll have in your solution that you build. All right, yes, but not everything I need. I think that generally is where most people are at. I'm not surprised by that result because everybody's kind of being pushed in this way of getting more showing value outside of just the financial close periods. Josh, how about we turn it to you before we run out of time here, man?
Yeah, I will share my screen right now. Okay, so I have pulled up here just Tableau's website, and I just wanted to state right at the beginning that Tableau's mission is to help people see and understand their data. In this day and age, there's data everywhere, as we've talked about, and you have to be able to bring it together in such a way to provide actionable insights using data visualization. And Tableau is the industry leader, in my opinion. And so let's just dive right into a demo here. And this is a dashboard and a data set that's very generic. It's just about a superstore that sells products. And so as I go through this demo, try to relate the data to your own processes, your own industry. Tableau can connect to any kind of data source, and it's just a matter of how you want to visualize it, and Tableau can do it. So diving right in here, we have our executive overview page, and this as you can see, we just have some simple KPIs up on the top here: profit, profit ratio, average discount, etc. Here in the middle of the screen, we have our map, and this is all interactive. So we can highlight and you can see a tooltip pop up with the profit ratio per city. And so over here on the right, if you see our faces, you can go ahead and move those to another screen because you're going to want to see the whole screen here. On the right here, I have our filters, and we also have our color legend. So on the map, you see that the more orange it is, the less profit we're making. And so this is totally interactive. You can select different regions and we'll filter all the data on the page to just that region. And so you can also have order dates and profit ratio that you can scale in and out. So you can explore the data as much as you want using these different filters. I did want to call attention to this. In Texas, it seems like we are really struggling to make a profit. And so looking at that, we can click on it and you can see up top that all the KPIs change to just reflect what Texas is going through. And so I wanted to call attention to the average discount is almost 40%. So all the products that we're selling, we're basically given a 40% discount from Texas. And so that's an interesting fact. Maybe we want to look into that a little bit more. And so with that in mind, I'm going to go to another tab within this dashboard. And this shows our customers and sort of analyze our customers. Up here on the top, we have a bar chart where we can see our different regions and by the different KPIs. And so Texas is in the central region. And so when I click on that, I can see that we're really struggling in comparison to our other regions. And down here, we have a scatter plot with profit on the y-axis and sales on the x. And so we can see that this dot right here, Luke Foster, we're giving a lot of sales. He's buying a lot of stuff, but every time we sell to him, we're losing a lot of money. And so I don't know why we're still selling to him. And so
volume.
we got to get rid of this customer. So one thing I can do is drill into this specific point. And I don't know if you'll be able to see, did you see anything pop up? Because I can only share one screen at a time.
Oh, no, we don't
okay.
see it.
Here is the screen that popped up. So I basically just said, I clicked on the point and said view data, and I can see right here all the orders and the products that Luke Foster has bought. And I want to call attention to discount column right here. We got a 60%, we got some 20s, we have 80% discounts. And we can see our profit for these 80% is in the tank. And so you can easily export this to Excel if you want to do some analysis in there that you're more comfortable with. But going back to the demo here, well, that zoomed in a lot. Okay, so you can export data points and do more analytics going on there. So it seems that we're giving discounts and maybe just taking out Luke Foster might solve a lot of our problems, or renegotiating our agreement with him. And so let's go ahead and keep going. So I wanted to highlight the commission model page, and there's a lot going on here, but I wanted to focus up here on the top that this is how we compensate our salespeople. And you're able to change the parameters up top so that you can say, okay, the new quota is $600,000. The base salary of my salespeople is $45,000. And entering these different parameters will change the visuals and how they interact with each other. And you can decrease the commission rate if you need to see the changes in that. And right here on the left, it's kind of messy. I don't really like it. And so if I have the appropriate permissions, I can go ahead and edit and just change the visual to be more what I want to see. So I'm going to go ahead and go to this worksheet, and I'm going to edit the colors so that it's not so much in my face. So I'm going to go ahead and below 50% of our quota, I definitely want to highlight in red, because that means, hey, these people are really behind. Let's focus on them. Let's see what's happening. 50 to 100%, I think we don't really need to care too much about. So I'm going to go ahead and gray those out. 100%, these are our overachievers. Let's go ahead and get them blue, meaning, hey, these people are doing great. Let's give them a reward. And it still looks a little messy, so I'm going to go ahead and click on these shaded regions and just remove them out. So I kind of like that better. It kind of helps me visualize what's happening. I can see the red and immediately take action on those individuals. All I have to do is just hit save and then exit out. And then I'll be able to see those changes in my workbook right away with everything else. And so that's just a great use case of Tableau, is that you're able to, your speed to insight is very fast. You're able to see and understand your data very quickly. And you're able to analyze things side by side and click around and change all the parameters and such. So that's all that I had about Tableau.
Maybe just make a comment on, how long it would take you to build a typical report. I know people are usually kind of curious as to just how you're showing the Martha Stewart already baked cake here.
Right.
How long did it take you to bake a cake?
Well, I mean, you saw how quickly I was able to change that visual. I would say it really depends. It's best to be able to ask what questions do you want answered, and then determine what visuals will best answer that question. We usually say around 10 hours per dashboard. So per page on here is about 10 hours to create once you're connected into the data.
Yeah, I think that's the right answer. Is you can get lost in the visuals, especially in Tableau, where you can spend some really good time. I mean, they have if you Google Tableau Public, there's a whole community of people who've just put reports out there, and you'll see some amazing visualizations that people have really spent some time on. But on the flip side, and I compare this to Excel, very easy to pick up. I think Excel nailed this, and I think Tableau nailed this, where, non-accountants, it's not meant to be a technical tool. It's meant to be a data storytelling tool for anybody to pick up. And if you're trying to get that water to the end of the row in your organization and getting everybody in the organization to think more analytically, these smart, not technical tools are a fantastic way to get that water to reach the end of the row.
Yep.
All right, Josh, thank you. So just wrapping up our presentation today, let me first lastly just say thank you so much for attending. Eide Bailly appreciates, we've got a lot of Eide Bailly clientele on this call, and we appreciate our customers tremendously. The thing that I promised I would leave is I'm noticing that Zoom won't let me attach anything. So here's the link for a Tableau blueprint planner. It's an Excel file. Feel free to just click on that and go download it. It's a really, really great resource that we use when we talk to clients. It's something you can use internally as you talk between your different departments. Ask some really good questions that you just kind of need to ask as you're trying to lay out a strategy for your analytics in your organization. I will say, just in closing here, we've got, as webinars go, you speak in generalities, and, we would love to have a better conversation with your organization. What I found is that typically organizations fall into 3 different camps. And what I would offer is if you want to have a conversation to find out, which kind of camp you fall into, and what we would recommend is your next steps for your organization. That's kind of a no obligation conversation that we would love to have. The only thing that I would ask is there is just a brief survey that we'd like you to fill out if you'd like that meeting. I'll send an email later today that has that survey in it. So if you'd like that, just fill it out. It lets us have a really productive conversation when we meet and just kind of hit the ground running on exactly where you're at and kind of where we think you should go next in your analytics journey. That is all the content we had today. Thank you everybody for attending. Are there any questions that we missed?
Not that I saw.
Yeah, I'll hang out for another 4 minutes if anybody wants to stay to the top of the hour. If not, we'll give you 5 minutes back, and just appreciate you all joining today. Thank you.